And I did. Visit noonemissed.org for more.
A public service message from Longevity Foundation.
The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy.
So this guy in the fantasy baseball chat is just ripping me. He's calling me names for how I handled my team. Buddy, you had 20 weeks for your own team to play better. Don't be mad at me.
The passion.
Mac Jones is fighting not just for his Patriots job, but he very well may be fighting for his NFL future.
The opinions on all your favorite teams.
For the Red Sox, it can't always be about next year. It can't always be about down the road. Where's the team that battles for now?
This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? A very happy Wednesday here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and FM at WDEVradio.com. Once again, tonight, full show, all 90 minutes. We are right up until 7 o'clock, and then we kick it on over to Jazz with George Thomas. Today, we're doing a deep dive on the Boston Red Sox. So we did Patriots stuff on Monday. We did Celtics stuff yesterday. Deep dive on the Red Sox today. Tom Caron, our Sox insider over at Nesson, is going to be with us a little later than usual today. TC will be with us at about 6:10, I think. And the reason being for that is because I want to go to TC for longer than usual. No doubt in my mind, I want to have TC longer than usual, do kind of a full post-mortem on the Red Sox and what went wrong, and there was certainly a lot of it. You can get in on the text line 802-585-3026. That's 802-585-3026. Danny, let go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber, also in Rouse's Point, New York. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. I start off the show with a question for you to get in on the text line. I'm willing to hear many different answers to this question. For the Boston Red Sox, simply put, what went wrong this year? Why are the Red Sox not playing in the playoffs? Why did the Red Sox finish in last place? What went wrong for the Boston Red Sox? 802-585-3026. For me, what went wrong for the Red Sox this year is a culmination of what's gone wrong or what's gone on for the last few years. I've said this before. I will reiterate it now. To me, the number one reason the Red Sox failed in 2023 is because they tried to do the impossible. They tried to rebuild, and they tried to compete, and they tried to do those two things simultaneously. They tried it. They've tried it for years, and it's largely failed for years. And anything else that you or I think went wrong, or you or I know went wrong, to me, it is all an extension of that thought. The thing that has doomed the Red Sox this year, the thing that doomed the Red Sox last year, the thing that doomed the Red Sox in 2020, not as much in 2020. 2020 was more of a pronounced step back in the COVID year. But the thing that's really doomed the Red Sox the last 2 years has been that they have tried to thread a very thin and a very, very difficult needle. And frankly, it's arrogant to think that you can do it because you know what? You can't. It is, I will not say it's impossible, but it is virtually impossible to try to rebuild your organization and compete for a World Series championship at the same time. You end up having your foot in both camps. You're halfway in the deep end. You're halfway in the shallow end. You're not fully all in on anything. You're not fully committed to anything. And as a result, you're caught here in the in-between. I know the Red Sox finished last, but they finished last because of a product of the division that they were in. If they were in another division, they'd have finished third. They'd have finished fourth, right? The Red Sox would have appeared as perfectly average. And that is okay. Like, that's interesting for a point, right? The Red Sox were interesting for a lot of the year. But why are they not playing today? Why did they not have a first-round bye today? in the Major League Baseball playoffs is because they arrogantly tried to do the impossible. It can't be done. It largely can't be done, and they tried to do it, and they tried to do it for a couple of years, and it has ultimately killed them. Okay? You might think it was a starting rotation. You might think it was not spending enough money. You might think it was from the farm system. You might think it was this, that, or the other. Every problem the Red Sox have, and every problem they've had for the last 2 years, comes from the same place. Trying to win and trying to compete at the same time. Every problem stems off that. Let me lay it out for you. They never went all in on tearing it down, right? If they did, if the Red Sox went all in on tearing it down, they would have traded like they did. They would have traded Mookie. They would have traded Benintendi, which they did. They would have traded Bogarts last year at the trade deadline. They would have traded Vasquez, which they did. They would have traded Evaldi. They would have traded JD Martinez. They would have sold off pieces. They would not have acquired Tommy Pham last year. Remember that, the Tommy Pham era? They wouldn't have acquired Eric Hosmer. So they never went all in on a rebuild. As a result, the farm system got better. But it didn't get better as good or as quickly as it could have gotten better. So as a result, the Red Sox had some internal answers to problems. They did not have enough. Their farm system is better at the top end. Their farm system is not deep enough to plug all of the holes that they needed to plug this year, and is not deep enough to plug all of the holes that need to be plugged over the course of a Major League Baseball season. If they had truly stepped back and torn it down and rebuilt, they would have had a lot more of those answers internally. So they didn't do that. Well, they also refuse to give up the prospect depth that they do have to go and get major league pieces to pull off plugging all of those holes. So if you're not going to get rid of your major leaguers to go on a prospect-driven path, and if you're not willing to get rid of your prospects to go on an all-in major league path, you are left with two options. One is spend your way out of problems. The Red Sox didn't do that either. And the other is to try to live on the margins. And that's what the Red Sox chose to do. And I believe that was a directive from ownership. We don't want to spend a lot of money. We want you to live on the margins, high and blue, right? You can have a prospect-driven path. They didn't want to go all in on that. You can have a spending-driven path. They didn't want to do that because they didn't want to spend the money. You can use your prospect capital to go get major league players. They didn't want to do that. And so they were only left with door number 4, which was live on the margins. And that, to me, is where you end up with this. We're in the middle, we're in the in-between, and we're not good enough. Okay, they didn't totally rebuild. They didn't totally invest. They thought they could do a little bit of both. They couldn't. They didn't. And that, to me, is the biggest problem. When we step back and look organizationally, if you think it's the starting pitching, it is. Why? Because they didn't do what I just said, right? They didn't go all in and sign Jacob deGrom or Carlos Rodon. And I know those guys got hurt or were bad. I get it, but those are the guys who were available. They didn't go all in and get to bring in Nathan Evaldi back or to bring Waka back. They didn't go and get Justin Verlander, right? They could have done any of those things to spend their way out of trouble. They didn't. They could have traded prospects to go get help. They didn't. They could have gutted it last year and accelerated it so they had internal answers. They didn't. They tried to do both things at the same time, and it blew up in their face. 802-585-3026. Text says, terrible defense. That's certainly a part of it. Texter also says, Heim didn't say yes to key trades. Possibly. That is fair, and that is possible. Right? We talked about Chaim Bloom being indecisive. I don't know what the offers were on the table, and I don't know that every player that the Red Sox had last year that was up for grabs got an offer on them, right? Like, I don't know that there were good offers made on Bogarts. I don't know if there were good offers made on Evaldi or on JD Martinez. I don't know that. But if they were out there and Chaim Bloom said no, then the Red Sox missed an opportunity there. Absolutely. But everything that's wrong with this team and everything that's wrong with this organization extends from those decisions to try to do two things at the same time. And you know who the Red Sox remind me of? The Red Sox remind me of the New England Patriots. You may not think it, but they're actually in very similar situations. Okay? examine the Patriots. I said the other day the Patriots are a team with a C quarterback and a C supporting cast. And I said that when you have a team like that, you need everything to go right. That's kind of where the Red Sox are, too. They do have a star in Rafael Devers. But when you live like the Red Sox have and you live on the margins, you end up with a bunch of C players that are then counted on to have everything go right. And like you need them to have A caliber years. When you live on the margins this way, you need your C players to end up being A's for you to have a chance. And that rarely, if ever, happens. And it rarely happens that you get a bunch of those guys to do it all at the same year, right? When you're not willing to go prospect heavy and when you're not willing to invest at the major league level and you end up on the margins, well, you end up with Kike Hernandez having to be an A player. And when he's not, it looks terrible. You end up with Christian Arroyo needing to be an everyday starter and needing to be pretty darn good. And when he's not, it blows up in your face, right? You ended up with, they needed Brian Bayo, who's a guy who's 23 years old with hardly any major league experience. They needed him to be getting Cy Young votes rather than developing at a normal rate where he could be a fourth or fifth starter, behind a bunch of other veterans. They needed all of these guys to outkick their coverage at this point in their career. And that's a hard place to be, right? Like a couple of years ago, they got that great year from Hunter Renfroe. You needed like 4 of those guys this year to have a Hunter Renfroe type season, right? Look, the Red Sox were forced into counting on the margins, right? The margins are the margins for a reason, right? I think about the Dodgers and like they've got Betts and they've got Freeman and they've got Will Smith and they've got Kershaw and they've got all these guys who are studs. And then you know what? They've got other guys like Jason Hayward there who can just be Jason Hayward. And if they're a C, they're allowed to be a C because everything else around them is so good. And if they're a B or an A, well then hell, now the Dodgers are loaded. But if he's just a C, that's okay. That's all they needed him for. The Red Sox needed all of their C's to be A's, and they needed it all at once, right? This team needed Chris Sale to be healthy and be good. Couldn't count on it, but they needed it. They needed James Paxton to be healthy and be good. Couldn't count on it, but needed it. They needed Corey Kluber to be healthy and be good. Couldn't count on it, but needed it. And you know what happened? Literally none of those things happened. Paxton had about a 2.5-month stretch where he was pretty good, but he was injured at the front and he was injured at the end. They needed Kike to be good. He wasn't. They needed Arroyo to be good. He wasn't. They needed Casas, a 24-year-old, to be a stud. And you know what? He was from June on, but the damage was done in the standings by that point. Casas was terrible in months 1 and 2. So everything that needed to go right ended up going wrong. And that was a problem and a downfall with this team. They had all of these fringe guys that were forced into being good, and you could never count on them. You could never count on them. And then Pablo Reyes and Wong, like all of these guys, they had one star endeavors that you could count on. Duvall, Yoshida, every one of them needed to be good. Verdugo needed to be a lot better. And the Red Sox have a lot of C players. They needed to be A's. It was never going to happen. It was never going to work. I said it from the start of the year that I love fringe players. I love value players. I look at the Dodgers. Chris Taylor was that at one point. I look at the Dodgers. Max Muncy was that at one point. Heck, Justin Turner was that at one point. Teams who are really good have fringe players, but they're fringe players who pop around under other guarantees. The Red Sox had no guarantees except Devers. And they forced their fringe players into having to become guarantees. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. 802.
That's 100%.
Oh, what do we got? What's going on?
How did he get past security?
110% on ownership, Brady, because they didn't give Chaim Bloom the necessary directive to go out and use every single piece of capital that they had in order to build a competitor in 2023.
That's our friend Jack over at NBC5, who apparently slipped past Danny into the studio here or something. But Jack, ownership is a lot of this, right? Ownership said, And people want to blame Chaim Bloom, and we can blame Chaim Bloom for not being decisive enough, right? Whatever's true in that story, he absolutely deserves blame for. But ownership, I said this today that Chaim Bloom got fired. Ownership has a huge imprint here on what's gone wrong with the Boston Red Sox. Ownership said to Chaim Bloom, we want to win, but oh, by the way, we want to win, and we also want you to build up the farm system, and oh, by the way, we don't want to spend any money. So Chaim Bloom is coming in with one hand tied behind his back, and that's a very difficult spot to be in. Counter that to Dave Dombrowski. When Dave Dombrowski came in, he was told, hey, win the World Series. Win the World Series and do whatever you need to do it. So he traded prospects. He spent a bunch of money. He made trades. He spent like a drunken sailor, and they won the title. And then after 2018, the Red Sox ownership said, hey, we like that winning thing. We'd like to do that again, but can we do it cheaper? And can we do it like the other teams are doing it with the farm system? So Chaim Bloom had to come in and trade Mookie Betts, and that was an ownership directive. He had to trade Mookie Betts, and then he was not, you're right, he was not given all the resources at the Red Sox disposal. They said to him, we want to win, but we want to win like other teams are winning. And so they didn't want to tank because they didn't want the damage done at the box office, and they didn't want to go all in because they didn't want to spend any more because they had spent a lot. They had spent a lot to win in 2018. Ownership has a huge part of this. And Sam Kennedy will look at the microphone and everything and blame Chaim Bloom. It's not all on Chaim Bloom. It's on ownership as well. And ownership has created this. I don't know if Jack's still there, but do you have a response if you're there?
And one thing I want to say as well, because and the reason why I put this all on ownership is because they used this term, they didn't use the term bridge here, but we all can kind of put two and two together here and realize that putting Yoshida on a roster, never played MLB, injured Duvall, they weren't gonna build a roster to compete, a pitching staff that could barely get through 5 innings, right? I mean, you give Sam Kennedy now the microphone, and he is the guy holding the stick, looking like, I wish I had the answers for you, but it's not my checkbook. It's not my directive. I hired Chaim Bloom, but I am not the guy here that should be answering as to why we're not playing in the playoffs. That should be directed right to John Henry, right to Tom Warner, and instead Sam Kennedy is taking unnecessary and unfair heat because he has to do the dirty work for John Henry, and that really makes me upset with this current ownership group because they want to put their resources into the Red Sox. They want to put it into the Globe. They want to put it into Liverpool, the Penguins, whatever WNBA franchise is announced tomorrow. Like, they want to put their resources into too many things, but this is the Boston Red Sox. It's not an organization where you can just half-ass it everything.
Look, I think the Red Sox, see, Jack, where I think you're missing the point here is I think the Red Sox wanted to win this year. I do. But hold on, and I don't think they thought of it as a bridge year, but I think they didn't give the resources to go all in. So, like, as a result, the Red Sox got players with a track record and with upside. And if everything was right, I think you can see the Red Sox have been pretty good, right? If everything was right, the Red Sox could have been pretty good. But the problem is that that the foundation was built on a house of cards, and it was very unlikely that everything was ever going to be right. I'm not stupid. If Chris Sale and James Paxton and Brian Bayo and Corey Kluber were all healthy and good, you can see some real upside there. And you can see a rotation that could be all right. In the same way, look, they turned Michael Wacha from nothing into pretty good. They turned out Eovaldi a couple of years ago from into pretty good. So they had success, right? Martin Perez had 1 good year out of 2, and Garrett Richards had an okay tenure out of 2 years. So they had done this dance before where they had found these fringe guys and made them something, and Arroyo had a pretty good stretch in 2021. But they needed all of those things to go right at once. And while I was hopeful that all of those things would happen, hope is not a strategy. And the Red Sox said, let's get some guys with some track record or with some upside, and let's see if they all pop at once. And the reality is they're never going to all pop at once.
You wish that they did, and you listed some great examples there. But the one thing that 21 team had was they had foundational guys, as you mentioned, but they had an ace. It was Nathan Eovaldi. And then they had a really good number 2 in Chris Sale. And then, like you mentioned, there were the other filler pieces that came in and they played up to their potential. This year, it was a rudder without a ship. Corey Kluber was the opening day starter. He's rehabbing some injury you and I have no idea about right now. And he's probably never going to pitch in Major League Baseball again. So they had guys that were anchors on the roster. This year, they never had an anchor. We can say it was Kike at the start of the year. Justin Turner became that guy later. But there was just not a guy that you could rely on, give the ball to, and you could guarantee 6 shut innings or every 5 at-bats he was going up and getting a clutch hit. Like, you couldn't count on that in this year's version of the Red Sox, and the roster was never built that way. And that's 100% on ownership for not negotiating with Bogart sooner and not giving Eovaldi what he was worth in the market.
All right, that's Jack over at NBC 5 Sports. We appreciate Jack being with us again. The Red Sox tried to thread a very thin needle, and that's what you need to know. The Red Sox tried to thread a thin and impossible needle. It cannot be done. You cannot win at the major league level while also having the directive be to get the farm system as good as possible, right? If the Red Sox had done all the rebuild stuff a couple of years ago, they would have had better answers internally. If the Red Sox had said, okay, we don't care as much about the farm system, then they could have gone out and acquired some major league answers. You couldn't do both. There are holes in both ships, right? The major league team was interesting for a portion of the year. The minor league farm system is better, but neither one of them are as good as they could be. And I do believe the Red Sox wanted to win this year. And I don't believe it was a bridge year, but I think they put a lot of faith in stopgap guys. I think they wanted to win with the stopgap guys, but they just put a lot of faith in guys who shouldn't be putting faith in. I shouldn't have faith in 37-year-old Corey Kluber. He shouldn't have to be my number 1. If he was my number 5, life would be different. I shouldn't have to put faith in Kike Hernandez to have a career year or Christian Arroyo to have a career year. I shouldn't have to put faith in James Paxton to be held. James Paxton had thrown 20 innings over the last 3 years, but yet they needed him to come out and be like he was in 2016. There were not enough guarantees on this roster. So I think they wanted to win, but there were not enough guarantees. Kevin says he's happy to hear Jack talking something other than high school football. Yeah, I like Jack too. Peter in Plattsburgh says, what good is Chris Sale when he can't be on the mound? Keep Yoshida, Devers, Bayo, Casas, Duran, and Martin, a few young guys, but that's it. Everybody else can go. Well, you're going to need to keep a little more than that, Peter. We appreciate it. Right now it's 5:52, and I don't frankly know what to do at this point. I was going to take a break like 10 minutes ago. I got a bunch of Red Sox stuff that I want to get to here. Danny, we're not going to take a break. Fire me the Red Sox lineup music because I want to get to a couple other things here before we go to the top of the hour. All right, let me start with some positive. We've just talked a lot about the negative. Let me end the hour on some positive developments and on some positive surprises for the season. For me, the number one positive development, the number one positive surprise is that you do look like you have the making of a good outfield crew, and that gives you a lot of options. The most pleasant surprise is Jarren Duran. There's no doubt about it. This is a guy that we left his career for dead. He came up. There was a stretch for like a month where you could not get him out. I mean, he was dominating at the top of the order, right? There was that game in Seattle, I'll never forget it, where he hit a leadoff single, stole second, they threw it into center field, he goes to third, and then they try to throw him out of third, and he goes home. We've played like, we're one batter into the game, it's 1-0 Red Sox because Duran just screwed it around. He did the same thing similarly in Oakland practically a few nights before that. Duran came up, and he was hitting over 300 for a while, he was playing excellent defense for a while, he could run, and he showed that he has what it takes to be a major league player. So now you step back and you look at your outfield. You've got Jarren Duran, you've got Wilyer Abreu, you've got Ceddanne Rafaela, you've got Alex Verdugo, and you've got Masataka Yoshida. The outfield is now a position, and you got Ref Snyder as well. The outfield is now a position of strength for you. And now when you have that as a position of strength, that affords you some opportunities in the roster later on. Do you want to trade Wilyer Abreu? Do you want to trade Rafaela? Do you want to trade Duran? Do you want to trade Verdugo? All of those. Do you want to trade Ref Snyder, who can go be a fringe piece for somebody else? All of those options are on the table. You do not need all 6 of those guys, right? You do not need all 6 of those guys. So a positive development for this team is Duran, but is the rest of the outfield crew as well, because now you have depth. Now you have options. We've spent time here with the Red Sox talking about how they got holes to fill. Well, outfield right now is not a hole to fill. I don't need them to bring back Adam Duvall. I didn't need them to keep Hunter Renfroe. They've got 6 outfielders there that all do something pretty well, including Ref Snyder. I'd absolutely be willing to move 1 or 2 of them to go get some pitching, to go get some depth in other places. 1,000%. Positive development number 2. I would say some of the young pitching really did develop. And I don't mean, I understand the rotation wasn't very good, but I actually really liked what I saw out of both Cutter Crawford and Josh Winkowski. I know Crawford was forced into probably doing more than he should have had to do at this point of the year. And if he could have been a swing guy in the bullpen, he probably would have ended up being really, really good. But instead, he had to make 23 starts this year. He had an ERA of 4.04. That's pretty darn good, actually, right? A 4.04 ERA for a 27-year-old who doesn't have a lot of big experience. I mean, I'm watching Major League playoff games where guys got ERAs that are approaching 4.04. Cutter Crawford's a guy who's under team control through 2028. You've got him for a while. Can he be my 5th starter? Yeah, maybe. Can he be that swing guy in the bullpen if my rotation gets massively upgraded? Yeah, maybe. But I like Cutter Crawford. I like what I saw from him. Guy who throws 95 miles an hour. He's got a funky arm action. Pretty good, like change-up splitter and a little slider cutter there. I think Cutter Crawford really developed. And for as much as I was cringing at whoever would take the ball for the Red Sox this year, I didn't cringe when Cutter Crawford took it. Also, conversely, Winkowski out of the bullpen, I mean, he wasn't a very good starter, right? I look at it in 2022 when he started last year, he went 5-7 with an ERA of almost 6. This year he goes to the pen, ERA of 2.88. He pitched in 60 games. He threw 84 innings. He could be a multi-inning reliever. He struck out 82 batters in 84 innings. Nearly 1 strikeout per inning. It's not the top of the mark, but that's pretty good, right? For a guy who's young, for a guy only in his 2nd year in the big leagues who's only 25 years old, for Winkowski to come up, be throwing 97, 98 miles an hour as a bullpen arm, and to have some pretty good off-speed stuff and another herky-jerky motion, he can be an answer in the bullpen as well. I give him credit for his development. Sticking with the bullpen, the one thing we do have to give Chaim Bloom credit for is he did invest in the bullpen. Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin were awesome, right? Kenley had more than 30 saves. Chris Martin had one of the lowest ERAs in Red Sox reliever history. I mean, his ERA this year was 1.05. And I know there was a portion of the year where he was injured, but he threw 55 games this year for the Red Sox, and he had an ERA of 1.05. He's 37 years old. He's under contract next year. If you want to trade him and rebuild a little bit, I think there's real value there. If you want to keep him, he's certainly a guy who's going to be good for you again next year. Will he be that good? Probably not. But I mean, if he pitches in an ERA of 2.5, I would say that's pretty good. So good job by Chaim Bloom on getting the bullpen going there positively. I think that both Martin and Jansen were very, very good additions to the team. Finally, also, Justin Turner. I got to give Justin Turner credit because Justin Turner is a guy, I didn't necessarily think that he was done, but I thought that, Justin Turner is 38 years old. He's almost 39. I thought that he was a guy who was going to hit 265, pop 17 homers, and maybe bring in 65, 75 runs. I thought he'd do what J.D. Martinez did last year. Instead, he hit 276 with 23 homers and 96 RBIs. And Turner ended up injured for a bit, too, this year, right? Turner played in 146 games, but he had that foot issue that he got in August. He missed 16 games. If he plays the whole year, he's going to have 100 RBIs and he might have 30 homers. 25 homers. For a guy who's 38, give him a lot of credit for that. He posted way more than I was expecting. He posted, he's a guy we talk about that was able to outkick his coverage. Well, Kike and Arroyo and those other guys fell short. Justin Turner did more than was expected of him. Kudos to him. Kudos to Chaim Bloom for bringing him in as well. And finally, kind of some other fun surprises for the year. It was fun to see Marcelo Meyer at the Futures game. He is the future of the Boston Red Sox. Fun to see him continue to develop. Rafaela. Pablo Reyes coming up was some fun, man. He was a lot better than people were expecting. He had a grand slam walk-off against the Kansas City Royals. Pablo Reyes was a fun story for a little while. And, give him credit for that. A lot of good stuff on the Red Sox. I got questions for the Red Sox and questions for the offseason. Less fun stuff. We're going to get to that right after the CBS News Update. We'll do it next here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com.
This is WDEV, Vermont's news station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugarbush at 96.1 FM, WDEV Warren and Waitsfield. In Berry at 96.5.
Oh,
in
well,
Montpelier
if Jack's going to call, I guess we
98.3.
don't.
Along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury, Montpelier. Streaming at WDEVradio.com. 92 years
What, was he
of serving
texting you?
Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, I told him to call in earlier. I just said, you're going to like the first
I'm Monica
segment.
Ricks in New York. President Biden reacted today to the House ousting Kevin McCarthy for working with Democrats on a new spending bill.
Twice in the last 6 months, both houses came
I actually
together
thought he
on
was pretty
bipartisan
tame
basis.
today. He usually
Wants to
does.
avoid default, wants to keep the government open. And while we should
Of
never
course
have
it could
been
be
in this
fun.
situation in the first place, I'm grateful that leaders on both sides came together, including former Speaker McCarthy, to do the right thing.
But Mr. Biden says he is concerned by the dysfunction on Capitol Hill and urged Congress to keep working. New Speaker candidates could make a run for the role as soon as next week. More than 75,000 Kaiser Permanente workers are on strike. They want a pay bump, but they also want help.
I work in med-surg unit, and we never, ever have enough staffing. It comes from not enough nursing, not enough support staff.
And it's not just a problem there in California. Workers are picketing in 5 states and Washington, D.C. New York Attorney General Letitia James is putting her foot down in Donald Trump's civil fraud trial.
I will not be bullied. So Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt, a fundraising stop.
The former president has dragged everything about this trial, including James, calling her incompetent despite a gag order. For about a minute today, the entire country was on alert.
It was the 7th nationwide test of the emergency alert system, but only the 2nd test sent to cell phones. FEMA did the test in coordination with the FCC. Since 2015, FEMA has required under federal law to test the system at least once every 3 years. All participants, like cable and cell phone companies, are required to file information to the
Did ours
government
run that?
about how the test went for them.
CBS's Matt Piper reporting there. FEMA says if you didn't get that alert, your
How's
phone was either
production today?
off or it's too old. Apple released a software update today to fix its overheating iPhone 15 models. Tech expert Ian Scher.
For Apple, of course, having an answer and
A little bit.
offering a fix quickly is really important. People who might be upgrading are thinking about what device they might buy during the holiday shopping season. The last thing Apple wants is there ever to be an asterisk next to anyone's recommendations.
Gold medalists for the 7th straight time.
Team USA won a record 7th team title today at the Gymnastics World Championships in Belgium. Simone Biles led the team, making her the most decorated female gymnast now in history, with a combined 33 medals from
What
Worlds
happened to
and the
TC, by the
Olympics.
way?
This is CBS News.
Well, you've got one that says 1829, and there's another one that says 1451.
Helping you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Okay.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly
Oh,
different.
hello. How are you?
How? You sell high commission investment products, right?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a
Now it's back
financial
with Brady Farkas Show.
You know what's in their best interest.
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on this Wednesday, WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Monday, we did a deep dive on the Patriots. Tuesday, a deep dive on the Celtics. Today, we get to our deep dive on the Red Sox, kind of where they go from here, what went wrong this year, and so much more. Doing that as he's joined us every Wednesday at this time throughout the season. This time, Caron of Ness. TC, how are you?
Find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
People are seeing some shocking messages south of the border.
With their dad in a U.S. prison for life, El
Doing
Chapo's
okay, Brady. How you
sons
doing?
may be turning a new page,
Doing
or
okay,
at least
Brady. How
putting
you
a new face on their massive Mexican drug operation. Their Sinaloa cartel has put up roadside banners signed by Los Chapitos, their nickname south of the border. They announced production and sales of fentanyl have been banned in the state. Analysts doubt they would abandon such a lucrative business. The four brothers took over their father's criminal empire when he was extradited to the U.S. in 2017. The youngest, Chapito, was extradited last month. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
Uber drivers can now handle your mail. The ride-hailing company says its drivers can now collect up to 5 prepaid and sealed packages and drop them off for you at the post office, UPS, or FedEx. Uber One members get charged a flat $5 fee. Monica Ricks, CBS News.
Your chance to be part of the show is on the text line at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. Tom Caron, our Red Sox insider over at Nesson, is going to be with us here in about 5 minutes or so. He's going to talk about a lot of what we've been talking about. What went wrong for the Red Sox this year, biggest surprises, and biggest questions heading into the offseason. I'm going to tell you what my biggest questions are now. You can get in 802-585-3026. Look, Red Sox with 78-84. There's clearly a lot of questions. They finished last. There's clearly a lot of questions. Danny, run me the other Red Sox baseball music. It's right above the previous one that you played. All right, the 5 biggest questions for me for the Red Sox this offseason. Number 1, who's running this thing? Who's going to be hired to be the general manager, the chief baseball operations guy? Okay, Ian Bloom was the chief baseball officer. Are they bringing in 2 people to do the job? Is it one guy that's doing the job? Who is it going to be? And also, how much power are they going to have? Because it's very, very clear that Alex Cora has immense power in the organization. Tyler Milliken of 98.5 The Sports Hub told it to us best a couple of weeks ago. He said Chaim Bloom worked for the team. Alex Cora is part of the family. Alex Cora is part of the family. So is Alex Cora really the guy in charge, or is it going to be the guy that they hire to be above Alex Cora? That's what I want to know. Who's getting the job? How much power do they have? How much power does Cora have? And also, how attractive is the job? You know, it's interesting. Because the easy answer is, well, there's only 30 baseball teams, and hey, it's the Boston Red Sox, so it's a really attractive job. And there's probably truth to that. But how attractive is a job where you're coming off back-to-back last-place finishes, where you're coming off last-place finishes in 3 of the last 4 years, where you're coming off of you're inheriting a manager, you're not hiring your own guy, and that manager very well might have more power than you. That's what I'd like to know. How attractive is the job? Are you going to be able to get the biggest names in baseball to come out for this job, or are you going to be stuck looking for the Chaim Bloom types? And that doesn't mean that they can't be good, but the guys who are more unknown commodities. That's what I want to know. That's question number 1. Who's running this thing? Number 2, my biggest question right now for the offseason is, what is Trevor Story moving forward? Because Trevor Story's injury this year was a big deal for this team, right? The defense was bad. The veteran presence was in. The power was bad. A lot of that is impacted by Story not being there. But who exactly is Trevor Story at this point in his career? He got 158 at-bats this year. Now, that's not a lot, but it's not nothing. Trevor Story got about a third of a season's worth of at-bats, and he hit 203, and he had 3 home runs, and he had 14 RBIs. If we extrapolated this out for a full season, Trevor Story would have hit 10 home runs and brought in 40 runs. Now, he's a guy who plays good defense. He's a guy who can run. He stole 10 bases in only 43 games. But if Trevor Story played, he would have hit 12 home runs and brought in 60. But, like, if Trevor Story, he can't be a guy who you're paying $30 million to, $20 million a year to, and be a guy who's going to hit 200 with 12 home runs and with 65 RBIs. He can't be that. Trevor Story's got to be a guy who can hit 30 homers. And he's got to be a guy who can hit in front of or behind Rafael Devers. He's got to be a guy who can bring in 85, 95 runs. I look at Trevor Story's career. He's brought in 101 runs once in his career, and he played in Colorado for the entirety of his career before Boston, right? He played in Colorado, the easiest place to hit. He never brought in more than 100 runs one time. He brought in only 85 runs in his career twice. There was questions about how he would hit away from Coors Field. And I'm trying to find the splits right now about what he's done where, and I will find it here over the course of this conversation. But there you go. Splits, career. I mean, his numbers outside of Coors Field are definitely not as good as they are at Coors Field, which is typical, but it's like a pretty precipitous drop-off here. But looking at it, okay, by ballpark, when he hits at Coors Field, he's a 303 career hitter, right? 303 career hitter at Coors Field. Everywhere else, I'm seeing a guy who hits in the 1s and 2s. He's had good career in Pittsburgh, good career in Atlanta. It's, in smaller sample sizes. But he hits 303 at Coors Field. He doesn't hit above that anywhere other than one game at Comerica Park in Detroit. Nowhere does he hit, even in small sample sizes, does he hit better at Coors Field. Oh, in Pittsburgh also, and in Atlanta. So as I said, so he's got 3 places he's ever hit better than Coors Field. Who is he? He needs to be a guy who hits 275, who hits 30 bombs, and brings in 95. We've got to figure out who Trevor Story is, because if he's going to be a guy who uplifts the lineup, then the team outlook is a lot different next year. If he's going to be a $20 million anchor next year, then that's a big problem. And the Red Sox won't really have a way to solve it because they're paying Story so much money. Question number 4, is Justin Turner coming back? And what does it mean for Masataka Yoshida? Justin Turner, I believe, has a player option that he can decline, right? Justin Turner was great. He loves Boston. Maybe he will want to exercise it and come back. Maybe he'll want to decline it and sign a new deal and come back. Or maybe someone will look at him and say, hey, Justin Turner hit 23 homers and brought in 100 runs last year. We're going to go pay him a lot more than they're paying you in Boston, and he'll leave. So if Turner is, like, Masataka Yoshida is best as a designated hitter, right? Clearly not a great defensive outfielder. If Turner's gone, then Yoshida plays DH, and that's fine. We go on and find a better defensive outfielder, and that helps the Red Sox defense. If Turner stays, and now you have to do this dance again where Yoshida has to play the outfield, and he's got to sit on certain days. You got to figure that out. Justin Turner, his future has a big impact on this team. Not only is he good, but his ability to be a DH kind of pigeonholes Yoshida into having to play the field. And then finally, 5 and 6 are put together. How much are you willing to spend? And what are you willing to spend it on? Are you going to go out and get multiple starting pitchers like the Texas Rangers did this year? Texas Rangers went and got Scherzer and DeGrom and Odorizzi and Evaldi and Jordan Montgomery. Like, they went and traded for or signed an entire starting rotation. Martin Perez back again. Like, the Rangers spent big money, and here they are. They're in the ALDS. Is that the only reason? No. But are you willing to go out and do what they did? Are you trying to go all in on Ohtani, and he's the only guy you're going after? And if you get him, then you're golden. And if you don't get him, you've got nobody. How much money are you willing to spend? It's a group that hasn't spent a lot in the last few years. They spent on Story, they spent on Yoshida, but by and large, they haven't spent like the Boston Red Sox can spend. Are they willing to do it this year? Are they willing to do it this year? 802-585-3026. Texter says it's all up to John Henry going forward. It is up to John Henry going forward. What exactly is he willing to do? Danny, we got Tom Caron, I know, calling in here. So, TC is ready on the phone line. We're talking a lot about the Red Sox. We're talking about our questions. We're talking about our concerns. We're talking about positives. We're talking about what went wrong. All of it here on the Brady Farkas Show. And TC is with us now on the phone line. Tom Caron, Red Sox insider at Nesson, with us every single Wednesday, usually at 5:45. Today we pushed it back a little bit because I think I'm going to want to go a little longer with them. So, TC, thanks for being with us as always. How are you?
Doing okay, Brady. How you doing?
TC, before we start, I want to get to all things Red Sox. I do want to pass along my condolences to you and the Nesson family on the loss of Tim Wakefield. I thought you did a beautiful tribute on TV the other day, a nice 3.5-minute piece or so, which was really good and encapsulated all things Wake. But I know it's been a really tough week for you guys over there.
Yeah, it has. And we found out, while we were on the air with the pregame show Sunday, that he had passed away. And that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do, is to, as you're processing it, I'm sitting there with Jim Rice, who's also very close. And we had to sort of, over 25 minutes of television process that he had passed away, 57 years old, far too young. It all happened so quickly, so suddenly. He just found out a few weeks back that he had the deal. And your heart breaks. His wife, Stacy, his children, Bree and Trevor, are just, left without a guy who really epitomized everything you want a player to be. I was saying he harnessed the magic of baseball. He did it with his knuckleball. He did it in retirement with his ability to use Major League Baseball and the Red Sox and the platform to help so many charities and thousands of lives. A special guy. We'll miss him terribly.
I said this on Monday when we talked about this. My Red Sox fandom doesn't extend to Tim Wakefield's career, so I have probably a different view of everything than people who were in it or people who were in New England at that time. But the best thing I can say about Tim Wakefield is really he was a cultural icon. And, maybe he wasn't flashy, but I think back, if you're in the ages between the ages of 28 and 45, you wanted to play baseball in the backyard or play wiffle ball, and you wanted to imitate Ken Griffey Jr., Gary Sheffield, and Tim Wakefield. And I think that's one of the more incredible things.
Yeah, I think that's well said. He was the relatable superstar, I would call him, right? Pedro Martinez was the guy you circled every fifth day in 2002 or 2003. And you were making sure you never missed a Pedro start. He was larger than life. But Tim Wakefield, we all in the back of our minds thought we could do what he did. And we couldn't. None of us had a chance of doing it. Nobody's really thrown, and kudos to George Kirby for throwing a knuckleball in his first pitch Sunday. That was a beautiful tribute. But we all went in the backyard and threw a wiffle ball and said, oh, man, I could do that. Well, no, you couldn't. Nobody could. But he somehow managed to do it, winning 200 games, making the best hitters in the game in the steroid era, making them look foolish. A Jason Giambi type, just flailing away, and A-Rod flailing away at that pitch. His starts were just so much fun. A Pedro start might be special, but a Wakefield start was fun. He got it. He threw it in games in an era when games lasted 4.5 hours. His games took 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we just watched and laughed and had a great time whenever he started.
Tom Caron, Red Sox insider at Nesson, with us here in the Brady Farkas show on DEV. No easy way to transition. We'll try to do so gracefully into the state of the team right now. TC, playoffs started yesterday. Game 2s are being played today. In your estimation, what's the number one reason why the Red Sox are not still playing? What went wrong?
I still think it's starting pitching first and foremost. In the end, the bullpen collapsed over September, but that was because of the workload they were put in July when they had 3 healthy starters and 2 openers every time through the rotation. And they actually managed, had the best record in July. So they were getting through that because of the bullpen, but no bullpen is built to go 5+ innings every single night. I think it was the 4th most innings of any bullpen in baseball this year. And so it starts there. You got to address the top of the rotation, not just depth, but the top of the rotation. I keep saying Brian Bayo is a really good young pitcher, and he should be your number 3 next year because you should. And I know Chris Sale is going to be your opening day starter, according to Alex Cora, but take him out of the equation. I want a new number 1. I want a new number 2, and then I want Bayo, and then I want Sale, and then I'm fine with Pivetta, and I want a new number 6 and a new number 7. Who are in Worcester ready to go. So you need to address the top of the rotation. You need to address the depth of the rotation. First and foremost, they didn't make the playoffs because they didn't have enough starting pitching. A big swing and a miss on Corey Kluber, who was your opening day starter last year. You could have kept Evaldi. You could have kept Walker. There's a lot of ways you could have gone. You didn't, and you paid the price.
what were some of the biggest surprises, positive or negative? What were some of the biggest surprises for the 2023 Sox?
Well, we'll start negative because they're not in the playoffs. The defense, the shoddy defense, right? The worst in the American League, certainly one of the worst in baseball. Defensive teams. Kike Hernandez was an abject failure at shortstop defensively.
Mm-hmm.
It was they tried something that we were all skeptical of. I remember spring training saying they are weak up the middle. We didn't know what they would be up the middle. And the fact that they got better is largely because Jaron Duran came out of nowhere and solidified center field. And Connor Wong developed way quicker than we ever thought behind the plate. And ultimately, Trevor Story came back and settled in defensively. To me, the biggest surprises were Rafael Devers regressing defensively. Did what we'd expect at the plate, but I thought he had improved over the last couple of years in his third base defense. It was a big step back this year. Their struggles at shortstop were a problem. On the positive side, Jaron Duran would be a big surprise for me because I did not think he was going to be able to step in and do what he did. Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen anchoring the back end of the bullpen really did take one of the biggest weaknesses a year ago and turn it into a strength. And Tristan Casas, I thought coming into the season was going to be really good, and he was so bad at the plate in April and May that one of the biggest surprises to me was his ability to turn it around. Listen, their offense went south in September because Tristan Casas was no longer in the lineup. He was the guy who was the center, the tent pole of that lineup and gave Devers a little bit of protection. Without him, they weren't the same.
TC, when we talk about kind of how this team rebuilds the roster, I think a lot of fan bases and organizations are having this discussion. I know we're having it with my Mariners. How much of this is about money and spending money? Because, you look around and yes, Corey Seager and Simeon have now been great this year for Texas, but Bogarts was Carlos Correa was Trevor Story has been Like a lot of the big money guys, Javi Baez lately, haven't been very good. So everyone's just clamoring to spend more money. How do you kind of reconcile what's happened with big money guys versus what the Red Sox need?
Well, it is interesting. Let's go to Texas because I think they're a great case study for the Red Sox. The guys they got 2 years ago, the offensive guys, took a couple of years to get going. But what they did, they won 68 games a year ago is all they won. And now they're back in the playoffs. And they did it because this offseason, they went out and spent a lot of money on pitching. Yep. And to your point, it's all about spending money. Well, there's nothing more expensive and there's nothing more risky in Major League Baseball than free agent pitching. And that is exact. And it doesn't always work. And the Rangers are the example. DeGrom made 6 starts and then was gone for the year. Jacob Odorizzi, who they went out and traded for, never threw a pitch for the Rangers. But they didn't stop there, right? They added Evaldi. They went out and got Jordan Montgomery at the deadline. They continued. It's no surprise that Chris Young is a former pitcher, and he's the general manager, right? And he went out and made moves that doubled down on pitching, understanding that if you went out and got 6 pitchers, 4 of them at best might make it through the year. And even Evaldi, right, had his month off on the IL, but he pitches today in game 2. So I think what you're saying is true, but for the Red Sox, it's about pitching, and there's good free agent pitching available. Yamamoto is 25 years old; he's the prize, right? Somebody's going to spend a lot of money and get him. He's a Japanese pitcher, 2 no-hitters this year. We all have been following him, and I think the Red Sox need him. He would be the perfect start. And then you're going to have Montgomery's a free agent. Blake Snell's a free agent. Aaron Nola's a free agent. There are good pitchers available on the free agent market. But guess what? They're all going to cost you a ton, and they're all going to come with the usual, you're holding your breath every time he throws a pitch. But you got to do it because they don't have the depth. They don't have the minor league pitching. They don't have anybody ready to step in and fill this out. So you got to follow the Texas lead and just throw it all out there. Get high-end pitching, get middle-end pitching, get low-end pitching, and cross your fingers.
Tom Caron, Red Sox insider at NESN, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Sam Kennedy and Alex Cora had the end-of-year wrap-up press conference the other day, and Sam Kennedy addressed kind of the search for the next GM, chief baseball operations guy, et cetera. Says they're going to take their time on this. Imagine they want to have somebody in here within the next few weeks. What are you hearing about kind of who the candidates might be? What about our guy, Craig Breslow, friend of the show?
Well, yeah, his name was kind of thrown out there, and he said, "Whoa." I don't know that he's certainly. I don't know that he would be in the hunt for the executive top spot, but maybe as a general manager number 2. It's interesting because they're looking for 2 guys, or men or women. They're looking for a GM, but above that, the chief baseball officer is what they call, Chaim Bloom, president of baseball operations, right? So, I honestly, to their credit, they've been very tight-lipped. I don't know. I know they will talk internally, and Eddie Romero Jr. is probably at the front of that list of the internal candidates. Been here a long time, and is a guy who can kind of combine the modern analytics with traditional scouting. The names outside are the names everyone else has heard. Sam Fuld, who's general manager of a New Hampshire guy, was kind of the guy who bridged analytics with, as a former player, with traditional scouting for that group. Brandon Gomes, same thing, out in with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are who everybody wants to be. Yep. Again, another New England connection guy who played the game and addresses analytics. John Daniels is a name I haven't heard a lot, but I wouldn't be surprised. He's kind of hiding out there. I think he's like the number 3 guy in Tampa, and was at one point the youngest general manager in the game when he was with Texas and did some really good things in Texas. I have not heard this from anybody on the Red Sox side, but I keep saying if Kim Ng, who's available, her contract's up in Miami. If she wants it, I think you'd have to have a good long talk with her, because I love what she has done in Miami, and her experience in New York, I think really gives you, that blueprint of someone who can handle the big market and knows what goes into everything that happens in Boston and New York. So, there's no lack of candidates. They've asked permission, they said, but I don't know who they've asked permission for. And obviously, like in a case like Kim Ng, the Marlins are playing, so you can't talk to them till it's over. So I think the main thing is they're going to talk to a lot of people. And in the past, we've talked about this last couple of weeks, they haven't, right? They interviewed Bloom and hired him. They interviewed Dombrowski and hired him. They gave it to Charrington, basically, after grooming him. So, basically since Mike Port handed it off to Theo Epstein, they haven't really gone through a big search. And I think this will be, because I think good organizations learn a lot about themselves in that process. They're asking candidates about their blind spots. What do you see that's wrong with the Red Sox from the outside? And if you listen to that, you can learn a lot.
It's interesting. Alex Cora said the other day that what needs to change for the team is the coaching staff needs to be better. Is that true, or is that just him taking accountability and we all sit up there and say, we like a guy who blames himself and not blames other people?
It's probably, I see all of the above, right? I mean, it's probably both. I think there is some truth to it. And we're wondering if they make any kind of announcement about the coaching staff. Would anything change? And clearly nothing did. But then you wonder, is that something they leave for the next executive to come in and decide who stays, who goes? The hitting was good. The pitching was not good. The defense was awful. Is that coaching, or is it player and roster development? Probably both. But everybody's got to get better. I did like the fact that, last year he talked about Verdugo as the guy. It wasn't one guy this year, and that leads to coaching. If it's a whole team that needs to improve, and I thought that was a good answer.
TC, I'll probably get you out of here on this unless something else comes to me here. But Alex Verdugo, you just mentioned him. Is he on this roster come spring training?
Not if I'm in charge. And that's not a knock on him. He's entering his final year of a contract, and I just think he's going to be tough to sign. And I've been through this too much with Betts, with Bogarts, and he's not at that level. But the whole hovering contract discussion, I worry about what that would do in a really important year. And his value, dropped over the second half of the year, there's no doubt about it, but I think he's got value. Really good defensive player, and a guy can hit. I would make him the centerpiece in a deal to get pitching, because I don't know that you can get enough pitching on the free agent market. I think you'd have to trade for pitching too. And like the Marlins are a team with pitching, so maybe you can pry a pitcher from them or somebody like that. So no, I think because he's still got value and because you still control him, but only for a year, I think he's the kind of guy you're going to have to move to get the pitching you need to get better next year.
All right, this is my real last question. So we've all been talking about Ohtani, and it's always been assumed he'll stay on the West Coast, right? He's been linked to the Giants, the Dodgers, the Angels, Seattle, all the West Coast teams. Jeff Passan, now I've heard him not once but twice come out and say he thinks the Red Sox are really going to be in the mix. Why all of a sudden do we think the Red Sox will be in the mix for Ohtani? Just because somebody new is going to come in and have a blank checkbook and it's just a money thing? Or is there something that is out there lurking that Ohtani loves Boston and we haven't heard it yet?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First and foremost, the Red Sox as a brand need a spark. And there is not, and now we're going back to the 20-year-ago debate of, feeding the monster. Are you putting together a programming department, or are you putting together a baseball operations department? The Red Sox need a little bit of both, probably a lot of both. And there is not one player. Listen, I'm on the TV side. I want Ohtani. I'm not sure it's the smartest baseball move. It's probably not, because you need pitching and he can't pitch, at least not for a year. But man, if I can slap Ohtani on every Nesson promo this winter, I got some people interested come spring. And I assume that'll go the same for season tickets and box rentals and advertising on the Green Monster and everything else. You want to jumpstart and reignite the passion of the fans. You want to change the narrative that you're not spending and you're not in on free agents. One guy does that faster than anyone else, I'd argue, in just about in any sport, and that's Shohei Ohtani. And he's available, and he's available once. Now, the other part of it is, that you are trying to prove you're spending again, right? And I go back to, I'm old enough to remember the Manny Ramirez signing. Dan Duquette bid against himself, and $160 million, which was an exorbitant fee at the time. There was no competition for it, but he knew I needed to go sign that one big free agent to make Boston a place players wanted to come. Johnny Damon followed. Guys started to follow. It became a destination for free agents. Right now, you're not. Right? You're not in on the big names. You go get Ohtani, all of a sudden, if I'm a free agent, I'm telling my agent, call the Red Sox. They're spending. Let's go. And that could open the floodgates to maybe make you a place that more players want to come. So, he does everything except address your baseball needs, because he's a designated hitter next year, and you probably got 6 guys who should be designated hitters next year. So if I'm a baseball operations guy, I'm not saying I need Ohtani, but if I'm Sam Kennedy, I might hire a guy saying, listen, first you're going to go get Ohtani. Then we'll talk about what you need to do for the baseball team.
TC, you're the best. You've been with us all season. We're going to keep talking to you every week, but I'm going to have to slowly get my hockey shoes back on here, my hockey skates back on to talk a little Swayman and everything like that. So we'll get in my Bruins mode maybe for next week. But always good to chat baseball with you. Much appreciated to going a little longer today to kind of do a deep dive on the Sox. We appreciate it. We'll catch up in 7 days.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate TC as well. And, I want to give a hand to TC, a virtual hand to TC for being with us every single week of the season. I mean, again, we'll talk to him next week. He's going to be with us every single week still. He's always with us every single week, but I just got to give him credit, right? There's nobody better to talk baseball with than TC and Buster, and we get a chance to talk to both of them. And I feel lucky to do so, and I think our listeners are lucky to have it as well. 802-585-3026, your reaction to what TC had to say. I have reactions as well. Danny, was there anything in particular, one thing? I think we talked to TC for 15, 18 minutes. Is there any one thing that stood out to you above the rest there that TC had to say?
Maybe not what you're thinking of, but he seems pretty high on Ohtani, doesn't he?
I mean, we're all high on Ohtani. The thing is interesting about Ohtani is what TC said at the very, very end. I don't know that you caught it, but it goes along with something we talked about earlier. Ohtani is a designated hitter next year, right? He's a designated hitter always as a hitter, but next year he's only a designated hitter. And he's a guy that you are only going to play at designated hitter. So it might not be, in fact, it's not the best thing for the baseball team to have Ohtani next year, right? If Justin Turner's back, he's a designated hitter also, right? If Justin Turner's back, he's a DH. Now, again, he's got a player option. Maybe he opts out. So that clears up one guy. Yoshida is best served as a DH. Now, you'll move whatever you have to move to have Ohtani. But if Ohtani's here at DH, then Yoshita's got to be in left, and your outfield defense isn't very good. And if Turner's here too, then you got to play him at first base sometimes. And does Costas learn how to play right field now the defense is worse out there? I don't know. I would move heaven and earth to have Ohtani, but there's certainly some issues if Ohtani wanted to come to Boston in terms of how you maneuver everything. Because, again, he's only a DH. As for how aggressive the Red Sox will be with him, I think they have to be aggressive. They have to give the appearance that they tried. I don't know that they're actually going to try. Maybe they'll come in and offer $550 million and know that Ohtani will blow it out. Maybe they'll come in and offer him 1 year and $75 million, knowing that he'll blow it out. I think the Red Sox have to make an offer, but I don't know that they're going to position themselves to be the biggest offer because of kind of the things we've talked about. But again, I also can't not get Ohtani because of 39-year-old Justin Turner or because of Masataka Yoshida. Now, I would hope that Yoshida is to my benefit here. Yoshida and Ohtani are friends. Obviously, they are countrymen. Obviously, they played together at the World Baseball Classic for Team Japan where they won a title. But I would hope that Yoshida is part of the recruiting efforts here, right? There are things that other places have that you don't, right? Like being on the West Coast is a greater proximity to Japan. You don't have that. Being on the West Coast offers you better weather. You don't have that. At least in a lot of cases, better weather. You don't have that. What you do have is a history of cultivating Japanese players and having them have success, whether it's Daisuke or Okajima or Koji or now Yoshida, and you have his buddy, actively his buddy. So I would hope that you can use that to at least get your foot in the door. I don't know that the Red Sox will try to knock that door down. There are questions if Ohtani came here and how you handle everything and how you structure everything. But yes, Ohtani is a guy that I would want as well. Texter says, I like Ohtani hype. Change the narrative and get Boston to become a destination. The other thing I think is the Red Sox have in their favor is their Tommy John track record. Well, okay, let's see. Paxton has come back. He was a really good pitcher. Guys who come back from Tommy John have done well with the Red Sox. That doesn't mean a lot to me because, I mean, just kind of the nature of Tommy John surgery at this point is that you're going to come back stronger than you did before, right? You come back with an entirely new ligament that doesn't have wear and tear on it. That's everybody, right? Like I now expect that you're going to come back better from Tommy John. And if you don't, then I think you've created something negative on your end, all right? And we talk about Paxton coming back from Tommy John. Well, remember, so we had Tommy John. He recovered that whole year, 2021, with Seattle, right? Like the whole year he was spent rehabbing with Seattle. Now, the Red Sox got him over the hump at the end. I get that. But Seattle did a lot of the work on his rehab. Chris Sale, could we say that Chris Sale, it took Chris Sale a long time to come back. So if we're keeping Tommy John's scoreboards here, I mean, are we looking at, oh, hey, Paxton was a success, but hey, Sale was a failure because it took Sale a while to come back. It did. I mean, so I don't know. I'm not going to go down that. I think the thing that the Red Sox have in their track record is they have a lot of money. They've done a lot of winning. They've done well with Japanese players. They've got his buddy Yoshida on the team right now. I think that's where you go in your recruiting pitch. Other places, the West Coast has something you cannot get around. But you have some things in your court as well. I do find it interesting that Jeff Passan lists the Red Sox as the only non-West Coast team that he thinks will be interested in Ohtani, or he thinks will be in play for Ohtani. I'm sure the Yankees will want him. I'm sure the Phillies will call on him. I'm sure that we know the Mets will call on him. But Passan seems to think that the Red Sox are the only East Coast team that is going to really be in the mix. Texter says, what about John Lackey? He was good as well. Yeah, okay. I kind of think, and now we're talking about Lackey, we're talking about a decade ago. That's a different time period, right? Like, I think everybody comes back from Tommy John better. If you don't, then I think there's been something done wrong. So, see what happens there. This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. It's been fun doing a deep dive on the Red Sox. I got to get to the breaking New England Patriots news of the day and tell you the big move that the Patriots made and why there might be others coming. We'll talk about it next on DEV.
Here in Vermont, it's now easier than ever to recycle computers, television, batteries, household paints, fluorescent bulbs, and mercury thermostats. Special recycling programs let you drop off these items at participating locations for
also
free,
ditch
since you can't toss
these
them in the
promos.
trash. To get details on where and how to recycle special items in your neck of the woods, call 1-855-63-CYCLE.
Oh, is that Paul Fair?
1-855-632-9253 or visit thekeyrecycle.com.
Come to the Taste of Montpelier Food Festival and be part of the grand reopening weekend of Montpelier, October 6th and 7th. Dine at world-class restaurants, enjoy foods from 20 vendors from across the region, and learn new cooking techniques from our chef demonstrations. The fun begins on Friday, October 6th with Art Walk and businesses reopening with fantastic sidewalk sales. Kick off Saturday morning with the Capital City Farmers Market on the Vermont College of Fine Art Green from 9 to 1. Take part in 24-hour Comics Day. Celebrate Kellogg Hubbard Library's grand reopening from 10 to 2, and then enjoy fantastic food and drink at the Taste of Montpelier from 1 to 5, with street performances all afternoon at City Hall and on Langdon Street. Montpelier can't wait to have you visit. You won't want to miss this family-friendly event, rain or shine. Montpelier is back and open for business. The Taste of Montpelier Festival, Friday and Saturday, October 6th and 7th. Find out more at montpelieralive.com/taste.
AARP Vermont is working hard to make sure people know how to avoid a scam and hang on to their money. That's why we want to share AARP's free resources with everyone. With AARP as your partner, you'll learn how to proactively spot scams, get guidance from fraud specialists, and feel more secure knowing that they advocate at the federal, state, and local levels to protect consumers and enforce the law. Today's tip is Medicare scams. Be suspicious of anyone who contacts you promoting a Medicare plan. Legitimate health plans can only contact you if you've requested information or if you have an existing relationship with them. With the help of AARP Vermont, you can recognize fraud sooner so your money lives longer. Remember, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. Get more tips at aarp.org/VT.
KOB Kitchen extends a heartfelt offer to those affected by flooding in Vermont. Until the end of this year, they're providing cabinets at their cost to help you rebuild and restore your homes. They understand the challenges you're facing, and they're committed to helping ease your burden. Take advantage of this opportunity at the Shelburne and Berlin locations for KOB Kitchen and let them be part of your flood recovery. Together, they'll make your kitchen beautiful and functional again. Visit KOBkitchen.com for more information.
If your winter tires are tired, poor, or otherwise not ready to face this winter, bring your vehicle to us at Waterbury Service Center. We have the right tires for winters, studded, all season. From tiny hybrids to 3/4-ton trucks. We wash, clean, mount, and balance your tires. Stop in today and find the tires you need and the service you deserve. We're Waterbury Service Center, helping you through another long winter. Full service repair right on Main Street in Waterbury. Thank you.
Make your opinion heard by texting onto the Brady Farkas Show at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. New England Patriots got some interesting news today and made an interesting move today. So earlier in the day, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk said he believes that Christian Gonzalez is out for the year. And that's a devastating loss for the Patriots, and it's a devastating loss for Gonzalez. And I hate seeing people get hurt, and I really hate seeing really good young players get hurt. Gonzalez was Defensive Rookie of the Month in December. He had his first pick on that Sunday night game against Miami. He was really balling out, number 17 pick in the draft. Well, he's gone now for either all or most of the year. I don't know if Florio is exactly right on that, but either way, we're not going to see Gonzalez for a while. Florio reported that he had a torn labrum, and if you had a torn labrum, I can't see him playing really before December. And by December, it doesn't even matter. It might not even matter at that point if the Patriots are out of it. So that's terrible news. We had the terrible news yesterday that Matthew Judon is out maybe for the entire year with bicep surgery. So the Patriots defense just got worse. Now the Patriots still, I think, can muster a good defense, but not as good as they were before and not as good as they were last year. So Gonzalez out. and Judon out. I think we'll see a lot more of Keon White, who's the youngster that they took in the second round of the draft this year, who's looked good when he's played. So I think maybe they at least can have somewhat of an answer for Judon. And as for their answer for Gonzalez, Patriots made an interesting trade today, bringing back old friend J.C. Jackson. You remember J.C. Jackson? Undrafted defensive back that they had a couple of years ago. Let him go last year. He signed a mega deal, like $80 million with the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, there's been some weird stuff for J.C. Jackson in L.A., and the Patriots reacquired him today. So Jackson, since he went to L.A., had a terrible injury last year, a terrible injury, missed most of the season, really gruesome stuff. He was out for a lot of the year. Now, when he got healthy and came back this year, there is some stuff going on with LA. And I would be honest with you, I don't know it all yet at this point, but J.C. Jackson has been a healthy scratch. J.C. Jackson has been active and not played. I mean, this is a guy who's an $80 million player and making a $12 million base salary who could barely play for a defense that was getting gashed for, Tyreek Hill for 200 plus yards week 1 of the season. So there's a reason why J.C. Jackson is available, right? There's clearly issues with him in L.A. There's been health issues. There's also been issues with, his usage. I don't know if they think he's bad now or if they think he's a malcontent or what. And then, oh, by the way, he had an arrest warrant out in Massachusetts also recently. So that's an issue. So now there's the kind of illegal side of things here. So I don't know whether or not that J.C. Jackson will be good for the Patriots, and I don't know that he'll be the answer to Christian Gonzalez's absence. I guess I'm intrigued by it because this is a guy we know and a guy who's had success here before. So I'm willing to give it a chance. And if I'm J.C. Jackson, I think I'd be happy to go back to a place where I had success. But there is a reason he was available. He's making a lot of money for not a lot of productivity, legal issues, and a massive injury history now based on last year. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but I do know the Patriots need depth at defensive back because, we've seen Jonathan Jones be out. We've seen Gonzalez now be out. We've seen Jack Jones, who's been on injured reserve. So guys the Patriots were counting on, really kind of their top, 3 of their top corners. Heck, even Marcus Jones is out. So, we're talking about 4 guys here you were leaning on not playing, and you can't run the whole year with Jalen Mills and Miles Bryant and, what else the Patriots have been doing because they just, you'd be getting gashed. And see what happens on Sunday. I got to tell you, Danny, I think Sunday's a must-win game for the Patriots. And I don't like to throw that phrase around because I guess nothing's really truly must-win until you're on the verge of being eliminated from something. But I think that Sunday's a must-win. You're playing the Saints. You're playing the Saints, who are an average team, who I think is a lot like you, who their quarterback situation has been murky, right? Derek Carr's had the injury, and we saw Jameis Winston last week, and how I don't know who's playing quarterback yet and how healthy they're going to be. So if you lose this game and fall to 1-4, I think you're going to see more Patriots moves. This is not baseball where you go and have a fire sale, but if you're 1-4, there's probably an organizational acknowledgement that your season is probably over. And if your season is over, why wouldn't you start unloading some pieces looking for draft picks for next year? And I don't know who exactly you have that other people would want, but I can see Kendrick Bourne being of value to another team. I can see Devontae Parker, although you signed Devontae Parker, maybe not him. Kendrick Bourne especially, I can see him being of value to you or to someone else. I could see someone calling on Hunter Henry. I could see someone calling on, members of your defense, maybe Juwan Bentley or something. Again, this is not baseball. You're not going to trade 5 guys. But do you trade 1 to go acquire a 3rd-round pick for next year? That's very, very possible. So if you don't win this game and you fall to 1-4, I think that is a very realistic possibility that there is an organizational acknowledgement that your season is over. And again, you don't unload you don't unload everybody, but you could unload one big piece or so in an effort for setting yourself up for next year. 802-585-3026. I got another piece of Patriots news I want to get to. We'll do that after this break that we're mandated to take. We'll finish out the show next on Brady Farkas Show on DEV.
Studio is sponsored by Sticks and Stuff and Swanton Lumber, Vermont's largest independent home center, powered by Marvin Doors and Windows. Go to sticksandstuff.com for store locations and hours.
Have you been thinking about installing a heat pump but didn't know where to start? Mitsubishi electric heating and air conditioning heat pumps provide year-round comfort with air filtration and precise temperature control. Plus, generous incentives and rebates are now available. Contact the Diamond Elite certified technicians at the Energy Co-op of Vermont for a free quote at ecvt.net.
Use less, save more at the Energy Co-op of Vermont.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different how? You sell high commission investment products, right?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a financial advisor.
How do you know what's in their best interest?
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No, we have one transparent management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really do look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
Exergen thermometers are proven to be more accurate than non-contact thermometers. With children back at school, keeping them healthy is important. Clinical studies have proven that non-contact thermometers are inaccurate and can miss fevers. Accuracy matters. That's why the Exergen thermometer is trusted and used by medical professionals. Exergen thermometers are available at Walmart and other participating retailers. Choose a trusted and accurate thermometer for personal use. Learn more about why accuracy matters at Exergen.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Want Brady to hear your opinion on the sports stories of the day? Text in at 802-585-3026.
This is Freddie Coleman of ESPN, and you're listening to Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV and WDEVradio.com.
That's appropriate. Earlier today, I spoke with Freddie Coleman, so that interview will be posted after the show on our podcast channel on Apple Podcast. On our podcast channel, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and WDEVradio.com. Talked a lot of Patriots, talked a lot of Celtics with Freddie also after the Drew Holiday trade. You can get his thoughts on that. You can find it there. The TC interview will also be posted there as well. And then the full show. Danny always does a great job putting that up like 5 minutes after the show's over. So, by the way, Danny, I looked at it. We're about to hit the 650,000 download marker on our podcast channel. So, wow. I mean, the show has been going now. It's going to be a 3-year, and we are 3 weeks away from 3 years. So I would love it if we got to 700,000 by our 3-year birthday. That would be a cool thing to go and tell the bosses, right? But bosses are always asking, hey, how's the podcast doing? What do the numbers look like? Oh, if we could say, hey, in 3 years we did 700,000, we did 750,000 almost. That'd be pretty good to me. I'd be happy about that. So we're getting close. We're about to hit the 650,000 download marker. We might even be able to do that by the end of the week. So appreciate all the support that we've got there. I did want to do a Patriots thing quickly here, but there's not enough time. We got Jazz with George Thomas coming up in just a couple of minutes, so I'll save the Patriots stuff for tomorrow. An update right now in the Major League Baseball playoffs. The Rangers knocked out the Rays today. The Rays, who won 99 games, beaten in 2 games by the Rangers. Rangers will advance to the ALDS. They're going to take on the Baltimore Orioles in that one. Should be a great series as well. That's the Rays are a very good team. And I feel bad we never got to see them at their best, right? They lost Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen and Shane McClanahan, and then the Wander Franco stuff, and then they lost Brandon Lau. I mean, that's a lot of people to lose. So I think the Rays are still a very good team. It's a disappointing fizzling end to it all, but they'll be back. They're still very, very good, especially if you think about it in relation to the Red Sox. The Twins right now have a 2-0 lead on the Blue Jays. That game is in the bottom of the 7th. I thought the Blue Jays were going to go to the World Series. If the Blue Jays get swept for the second consecutive year in the wild card round. That is going to be a major disappointment because the Blue Jays have way too good of a core to be fizzling out in 2 games. So we'll see if they can come back, but they've only got 6 outs left to play with. And good for the Twins. I mean, I picked against them, but if the Twins can get to the next round of the playoffs and win their first playoff series in 21 years, that's pretty good. It's a good year to end droughts, right? The Mariners last year ending their playoff drought, the Sacramento Kings ending their playoff drought, and now you look at the Twins ending their playoff win drought, ending maybe a playoff series win drought. I think that's pretty impressive. So Toronto has left 8 runners on base in this game. Sonny Gray threw 5 scoreless innings. Still to come tonight is the Brewers and Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks had a 1-0 win yesterday over the Brewers, and that surprised me as well. Brewers had bases loaded, nobody out, like the 5th inning, and weren't able to score. That one's a knife right to the baseball-loving heart. And then the Phillies had a 4-1 win yesterday over the Marlins. If they could win, they'll advance to the National League Division Series. And the Phillies have bigger goals than this, but they certainly got to start with winning this series. So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow is going to be a fun show, right? We've kind of done our deep dive on everybody now, right? We did our Patriots deep dive. We've done our Celtics deep dive. We've done our Red Sox deep dive. So tomorrow is kind of back into a hodgepodge. We're going to have Buster Olney on the show tomorrow. Buster and I are finalizing the times for tomorrow. It kind of goes with his travel schedule because he's out covering games and covering series. So we'll have Buster on sometime tomorrow. I think we're going to do a 2-guest show tomorrow. Elisa Kresge is going to stop by also. Elisa Kresge, the UVM women's basketball coach. They have started practice. They have big goals this year. They've got one big injury, Catherine Gilby, to overcome. Talk to her about kind of what their solutions are to that issue. So I'm interested to talk with Coach Kresge, likely in the 6 o'clock hour, probably late in the show. It looks like about 6:40 for that. We're kind of finalizing that time as well, but I'm looking forward to talking with her. And then on Friday, it'll be time for Phil Perry and another Football Talk Friday, and we'll do our Patriots stuff and our games of the week and our six-pack of NFL questions. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank again. I spoke to Freddie Coleman today. I spoke to Tom Caron. Those interviews are going to be posted. I want to thank all of you for getting into the text line. Also, Danny Drew Holiday, Celtics new guard, had his press conference today. We'll have clips and sound from that as well. That went on in the afternoon news service, so we had no way of listening to it live, so I don't want to talk about it until I've heard it. So we will do a kind of a breakdown of what Drew Holiday had to say as well. I'm very excited for the Celtics. We are 21 days away from the season opener. Peter in Williston says, thanks for a great show, everybody. Well, thank you very much for listening, as always, Peter, and we'll be back at it tomorrow. The full podcast will be available shortly. Jazz with George Thomas is coming up next here on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com, and always streaming on the free WDEV radio app.
I'm not exaggerating when I say this.